A sentence in the high-profile Sean Diddy Combs trial. The rapper was convicted on federal prostitution charges back in July. Let's go right now to Fox News national correspondent CB Cotton outside of the courthouse. CB?
Hey, Will, yeah, the judge moments ago sentencing Sean Diddy Combs to 4 years behind bars, telling the court he took into consideration that Diddy was self-made, someone who lifted up others, supported his family. He noted that Diddy did a lot of this while even battling addiction, but he said he had to consider all of the rapper's history. And he said that, specifically, he said, quote, a history of good works can't wash away the record. He pointed out that two of Diddy's accusers and former girlfriends, Cassie Ventura and a woman who testified under the pseudonym Jane, he talked about their testimony specifically. The judge pointing out that after Diddy publicly apologized for the leaked video of him assaulting Cassie, that Diddy assaulted his current girlfriend, Jane. And this sentence handed down 4 years behind bars for Sean Diddy Combs. It comes after Diddy pleaded for mercy, stood up and addressed the judge inside the courtroom. In a shaken voice, he apologized to Cassie Ventura. He apologized to that former girlfriend, again known as Jane. And he said he was sorry to all other victims of domestic violence. Diddy called his own behavior disgusting, shameful, and sick. And he said it cost him his career, his reputation, and his family. He also then turned in the courtroom to his children and apologized for letting them down, saying that he had not been the father they deserved. And he really pleaded with the judge to give him another chance. But again, ultimately, Will, we now know that the disgraced media mogul, who was once at the height of the music industry, has now been sentenced to 4 years behind bars. The judge said that any of Diddy's past good works could not overstate the record in this case. The witness testimony from women who said they had to endure years of physical and emotional abuse at the hands of the rapper. Will, I want to send it back over to you.
Quick follow-up, CB. The prosecution was looking for anywhere around 11 years, and the defense team for Diddy was looking for something like 14 months. As you mentioned, it came back at 4 years. Was there any visible reaction by Combs in the courtroom when he was handed down that sentence?
Right now, I'm still waiting to get some more details about the reaction that we saw from both sides inside the courtroom. But, Will, I do want to point out that the judge said that the requests being made on both ends, he said they were not reasonable requests. And I think that determination on his part ultimately led him to hand down that sentence. I'm looking at my producer, who is about to hand me a note in a matter of moments. But right now, we know this sentence has just been handed down from the judge. 4 years behind bars. Like you mentioned, defense attorneys wanted a 14-month sentence, saying that the time Diddy has already spent behind bars was adequate punishment, arguing today that Diddy's businesses and reputation have already been destroyed. Prosecutors, on the other hand, said Diddy was not sorry and that his apology was phony and that there was some serious harm done to the victims of this case. Like you said, they wanted a sentence of at least 11 years. Ultimately, we know a sentence has now been shared with the court of 4 years behind bars for Sean Diddy Combs.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox.
Well, the verdict is in. The verdict is in. Diddy got 4.5 years. Man, oh man. Everybody's talking about this. Listen. He went from bad boy for life to being somebody's prison wife. Man, oh man. See, look. Let me chop it up with y'all. Let me keep this a buck. Let me keep this 1,000 with you. I heard Fox News push out that he's sorry for what he did. You know, really, he's sorry he got caught. You know, a lot of these celebrities get into these positions that they're in by snaking people out, being conniving, being treacherous. And then when they get caught, they want to pay people off. They want to silence people. And then they want to get our emotional support. Now, I'm going to keep it 1,000 with y'all. I'm not going to sugarcoat. I'm going to keep it real. Diddy is disgusting, deplorable. And I truly believe the things that we've seen on the news is not nearly all of what he done. I believe that. I believe he has a lot more to hide. You know, I've looked at the testimonies of Ali Carter. I understand what go on in these mansion parties and so forth. And to be 1,000 with y'all, I don't really have no pity for old Diddy. Now, look, I want y'all to hear me out now. You know one of the most disgusting things that Diddy was out here doing? One of the most disgusting things that Diddy was out here doing is he was taking man jizz and rubbing it on himself, rubbing it on his chest. He was practicing thelema, sex magic rituals. The man was taking man cum, the jizz of men, and rubbing it on his chest. Ugh. Ugh. Now, consequently, he had a hankering for bussy, and he got put on timeout. This hankering was so out of pocket that he was flying these grown men over illegally, while the women that he was using them to fulfill his nasty, satanic, desperate sexual desires. And he got a slap on the wrist, if you ask me. But let's look at what else the news is saying about the Diddy trial, because this is apparently the news is breaking. And Diddy got what he got. He got his sentencing. And it is what it is. Hold on. Let's talk about it, because I want y'all to understand this. Diddy ruined a lot of careers. Diddy cheated a lot of people out of a lot of money. Diddy is perhaps behind the assassinations of several prominent celebrities and figures. I don't like Diddy. And I'm going to share my reasons why. We'll get into all of that. Some people would say, well, Diddy's doing his time. Why are you saying the things you saying? Listen, if Diddy was anyone else, you got to look at it from this angle. If Diddy was anyone else other than a multi-million-dollar mogul who has intimidated, threatened, and abused people and utilized his power to do evil on the side of Satan, if he had been anyone else, they would have got thrown under the jail. But I believe that Diddy's parents are federal informants. That's why he got a slap on the wrist, due to Diddy's connections.
18 months, which is essentially time served. But when probation came in with that assessment, which was 60 months to 72 months, clearly the judge took that into consideration. Now, he downwardly departed from that, meaning I think two things are to note here that you heard the judge say there. One is that a sentence should be sufficient but not greater than necessary to achieve the ends of justice. And so you'll often hear defense attorneys saying that. The second is that similarly situated defendants, you want no discrepancies in similarly situated defendants. When you look at all of the Mann Act guilty verdicts sort of in this jurisdiction, this is a pretty high sentence. And so I think the judge didn't want to get out of that heartland of the sentences while taking into account the violence here. That's the biggest issue here.
Well, right. So on the one hand, you're saying Joe Schmo comes in, has a Mann Act violation. You want the sentences to be the same to hold up that important judicial principle that all people are on the.
I guess the Trump administration said, y'all can let Diddy ass out when I'm out of office. They said, look, Diddy threw shade on Trump. He like, look, I could have got you out. You know, y'all remember Trump was talking about pardoning Diddy. But he like, nah, leave his ass in there until I'm out of office. That's what happened. That phone call came in. You know, all them people, they all together in my eyes. They all hiding something. Let's go.
On the other hand, the judge, as Jericka went through, went on at some length about all of this other material and all of the stuff the judge mentioned. Is that a part of the Mann Act charge, or is that
interesting? So it's not. So remember, it was a huge win for his defense when he was acquitted of those sex trafficking charge, which is essentially a Mann Act charge with the element of violence. And the defense actually raised a constitutional argument here in their brief, saying that, look, if you consider that conduct, the violence, the coercion that was presented by the prosecution, that's actually going against what the sentencing guidelines recommend or state, that you can't consider acquitted conduct. Essentially, he was found not guilty.
Yeah, Diddy is a straight up glizzy gobbler. Yeah, he's definitely a loose flamingo out here. And Diddy, you know, he's out there in that jail right around all the men. You know, this is the guy that was packing up. He was packing up those male prostitutes from overseas. Now he get to be around them. He get to be, listen, he get to fulfill all his fantasies and his desires. And God himself is judging Diddy. That's why Diddy up in there. Because you got Diddy sympathizers. You got the whole entire Bussy gang trying to free Diddy. Y'all remember they was marching outside the courthouse, sprinkling baby oil on each other. Ugh. They was spraying baby oil on each other when they thought Diddy was about to walk out them doors. They were celebrating. Everybody was on their high horse. Now God had to sit him down for a minute because his sexual proclivities got way too outrageous.
Of that conduct, so why consider it in the sentence? The judge setting some precedent here, saying absolutely I can consider the evidence that was produced at trial. It's not necessarily going against those acquittals. There was obviously evidence of violence here. You can take into account his character, his demeanor. This has always been a tale of two different Sean Combs. The defense wants to portray him as, you know, a lost man who has trauma issues since his father was murdered at the age of 3, with addiction issues, struggling to get by. The prosecution paints him as sort of a nefarious, devious, really serial perpetrator of violence.
So in the end here, you mentioned that the defense team will be happy with this verdict.
Oh, well, look, I mean, they wanted him to walk out. I think Agnifilo said, you know, today we wanted to walk out.
Yeah, God himself intervened and made sure Diddy sat down because Diddy, you know, he was doing a lot. He was doing a lot. Although it looks like on paper he could have walked. It looked like he could have walked, but God was like, nah, sit him down. See, not a leaf falls from a tree unless God says so. And Diddy was out here wilding. We can't say justice wasn't served. We can't say that. There's a lot of people's careers that he ruined. A lot of pain and hurt that he's caused. Telling you.
I think they may appeal on the constitutional grounds, on the grounds that they're going to say that the judge took into account this acquitted conduct and that they should only be looking at the actual violations of the Mann Act.
So just to catch people up with that, so if it comes out in trial that you did X, Y, and Z, but you are then acquitted of the charges in which that information came out, the defense's argument will be The judge can't take that into consideration.
Exactly.
Even though it was talked about and everybody knows.
I want y'all to know Diddy was on some real live blink twice stuff. He was on some real live blink twice. Like, it was something in that baby oil that was making everybody forget what the hell happened. I'm telling y'all. Y'all had trainers coming forward saying they woke up with their ass hurting. You had trainers come forward and say that basically he raped them, that a group of Diddy's assailants manhandled him. Y'all remember that one group that was shedding, they were shedding crocodile, not even crocodile tears, they were shedding real tears. A whole group. What's the name of that group that was shedding tears? Y'all seen how creepy Diddy was. Y'all know that man was creepy. Y'all seen how Justin Bieber acted around Diddy. Stop acting like I'm the only one who seen it. How Justin Bieber was tense, afraid. Y'all remember Justin Bieber on the Ellen DeGeneres show when Diddy cut him off and was like, look, you don't tell them what go on with Puff. You don't tell them people what you and Puff do in private. Yeah, Danity Kane. Yeah, Diddy was an aggressive, nasty sodomite. Yeah, they was on the band. Yeah, this is nasty work. Diddy, he had to sit down. So it ain't no more Ciroc boys right now. He will have to drink that prison hooch with those men in prison with their prison shirts tied up like halter tops. He right in his element. What are we upset about? Diddy is in his element. What are people upset about? He right where he wanted to be.
About it, can't do it. That would be their grounds.
Exactly, because you weren't found guilty of that offense. They haven't proven it by beyond a reasonable doubt. However, forever, sentencing judges can take into account prior bad acts if they find by a preponderance of the evidence that those were committed. And so it's kind of a gray area there. But clearly this judge did take those factors into account to some degree, but then mitigated it as well to keep it within those, to keep things a little bit more consistent in terms of, similarly situated defendants.
All right, Caroline Polisi, thank you. CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman was inside the overflow courtroom as the sentencing was read and is now outside for us.
See, what this got to show you is we living in a time where the Epstein files ain't getting released. But Diddy, with his little proclivities he had going on, he got to pay for it. Why is that? Some may ask, why is that, Bree? Why Diddy got to pay for what he did, but the other people ain't got to pay for what they have allegedly done? Some people may be wondering that. Well, that's because our people have to be held accountable before them. And if you want to consider Diddy one of our people, he does have our ethnicity, but the truth be told, man, these celebrities, they be handcrafted, molded, trained to be a certain way. And they, for real, they really unrecognizable to us because at the end of the day, they get groomed to be a certain way. These people like Diddy is like science, like lab-grown Negroes created to destroy his own community. Like Diddy disowned us a long time ago when he was pushing out devilish music from his artists. When he took the satanic oath, he disowned us a long time ago. When he vowed to put toxic and poison music in our community, he disowned us when he sold his soul. Diddy disowned us when he sold his soul. You understand what I'm talking about? So now he gotta sit down in the feds.
Katrina, what did you make? What's your reaction? What did you witness?
I mean, what was striking when the sentence was finally read is how still Sean Combs was. He just sat there, his hands clasped, looking down, and it was such a contrast to earlier because I would say it was such an emotional day in that courtroom. When Sean Combs' kids spoke in court today, they were all crying. His lawyer, Nicole Westmoreland, was crying. Sean Combs got up there and said his own words, and his voice was really shaking. He was very emotional as he told the judge how this had affected his life, how he felt like a changed man. And even when the judge read this sentence, he began by praising Sean Combs, by talking about the work that he's done, the barriers that he's broken, how impressive.
How the judge gonna praise him but send him to jail for 4 years? That's wild work. That's wild work right there. Make sure y'all double tap the screen on your way in. Get that likes up. Let's go.
It is, even at a young age, having lost his father, all that he overcome. But he said that all of that could not wash away the record of this case, the evidence that we saw in that courtroom. He also pointed to the fact that some of this aggravating behavior, the violence, took place even after Combs already knew that he was being investigated. And after that Intercontinental video that we've seen so many times, Sean Combs posted this apology on Instagram. The judge said, saying a lot of what he said in the courtroom today, and yet even after that, he beat one of the women who testified in this trial. So the judge was just not convinced that his behavior had changed, and he said this had to be done for deterrence. And Sean,
and see, that's why he got time, because the judge felt that his behavior have not changed. Why? Because even after the Cassie lawsuit, the other woman he was with, he was molly-whopping and jolly stomping her too. So the judge did what he needed to do to teach Diddy a lesson. Now he got to go back and forth with men. That's where he wanted to be anyway. Let's keep it real. Like Diddy, he is in his natural habitat. His unnatural natural habitat. Diddy's there. Yeah. We not sticking up for none of these boule sellout celebrities who done already did all the damage they could to our communities, and then when they get tossed to the side, we supposed to feel some sympathy. I say pack Diddy ass up and get him up out of here. That's how I feel about it. Am I saying that people shouldn't have the ability to have some type of recovery and reconciliation? And no, I'm not saying none of that. Rehabilitation, I believe in that. But Diddy got to do what he got to do to get rehabilitated, because based on what we've seen, he's a sick, sick man. Sick.
Combs just really sat there looking defeated. He told us in court today that he was broken. He looked absolutely distraught when his kids were speaking earlier. He was crying. He was wiping his face with a tissue. And you can see really how all of this has affected him. And now he is going to have to deal with this incarceration.
And in the judge's remarks, you mentioned that, Katrina, that he started off and he sort of had a trail of the way he. How long did he speak for? And was he pretty much monotone the whole way, or did the judge betray any emotion in his remarks?
No, I would say that there absolutely was, and I can't say how long because he was actually.
And for the record, I agree with this comment where it says we all need a little rehabilitation. I agree. All of us have done things we're not proud of in life. Can everybody agree with that? I know I agree. I've done things I ain't proud of in life. But there's a difference between someone who is being manipulative and calculated, and once they're caught, they continue to try to hide what they've done and continue to do it instead of facing what they've done and truly repenting. See, the difference between some of y'all and a Diddy is Diddy, when he was caught, He kept on lying. He kept on doing what he was doing. He was unrepentant. So much so he had to sit down. He didn't make the necessary changes in order to get out the situation and really tap into his creator. So now he got to sit down. You know, maybe he does. He got 4 years. They were aiming for 11. I don't know. Maybe he does. He may do 2.5. He may do 2.5. He may do 3. But the bottom line is, this is why we're supposed to lean on the Most High. Right? Anyway, let's continue.
She's still speaking as I left the courtroom. He was praising the women who came and testified in this trial and the courage that it took for them to do that as I walked out. But you could absolutely hear emotion in his voice when he was talking about all of the things that Sean Combs has accomplished. You could tell that, you know, he is very impressed by all that he has done, by the work that he is continuing to try to do in the prison system. But all of that just was not enough to overcome the massive amount of evidence that he said we saw in this case, the violence, the extreme nature of the behavior, the length of this behavior. It happened over a decade with...
Man, I want y'all to think about what happened to Craig Mack. What happened to Tupac? What happened to the Locks in their career? What happened to all these brothers? What happened to Chopper from making the band and Freddie P from making a band? There's a lot. Listen, Diddy left a trail of people. Think about what happened to Al B. Sure, how he got hospitalized randomly. I'm telling y'all got to really look at the full scale picture. Yeah, Black Rob. See, when I name these names, I ain't even got to describe what they did, what he did, because it's so infamously known. Yeah. Diddy was yelling. Diddy was in, 112. I'm telling you, man, Diddy left a lot of damage behind. And now he probably gonna have a damage behind. Ugh. That's wild.
Multiple victims, and all of that just was not enough to supersede him saying that he now feels remorseful for this, that he is repentant. And earlier in the day, the judge also said that he just wasn't fully convinced by the narrative that Sean Combs and his team have been saying.
CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman, thank you. We want to go back to Jerika Duncan, who's outside the courthouse. Jerika, there have...
Yeah, Kim Porter. We all know what really happened to Kim Porter. I believe Kim Porter was a blood sacrifice for Diddy. And Al B. Sure knew it too. That's how Al B. Sure had that near-death experience where he almost ain't make it out. I'm telling you. Somebody said it may end up, let me say, I pray it's going to be 4 years. I don't know. He probably going to get out a little bit quicker than 4 years. And I mean, just think about all the damage he done. He got what he deserved. I mean, think about Usher in Diddy's Flavor Camp. Like, if I just play the footage of this man next to Justin Bieber, y'all gonna be like, man, no, bro. Anybody with any level of discernment gonna see what happened to Justin Bieber. See, Diddy was a gatekeeper. Diddy was a gatekeeper.
They're always in these high-profile trials. People who gather around, who kind of come and pick sides. What has the reaction been in the wake of this sentencing?
I think you have people that have been out here, some that support Combs and are saying things like free Diddy, and then you have folks who are advocates and wanted to see him face some serious time. An attorney that I did speak to did make clear, though, that a lot of times in these federal cases, people don't necessarily serve the entire time. So again, Combs has already been behind bars for a little over a year. Then there's, I was told, 15% off for good behavior, sometimes 15% off the sentence. There's First Step Act credits to consider. There's a certain percentage that you can do for halfway house or home confinement, and possibly additional time off for drug treatment programs. So in the end, we don't know exactly what that really looks like in terms of how much more time Combs will spend behind bars. But again, this judge trying to send a message saying that what he did was wrong and that he did believe the credibility of those women who testified. Court just adjourned, but I want to leave you with a couple of thoughts from the judge. He looks over at Combs and says, you are going to get through this. There is light at the end to help people like him. You will have a chance, he says, to show your children and the world that accountability and change is possible.
Well, Diddy better come back and turn his life to the Most High and stop being a old head freak body out here in these streets. That's for sure. And I want to say this is the elephant in the room, right? I'm going to another news source too. I want to see what each station is talking about, but I want to say this because this part is important, and it's what a lot of people not going to point out. What about everybody else who's involved? What about that? Now, when the feds raided Diddy's house, they came out with boxes, videotapes, cassettes, hidden camera footage. There was boxes, multiple boxes. You can't tell me that it wasn't some people in power on them boxes, in those boxes. You can't tell me that a man can catch a RICO charge, well, without other people connected. We need to save the victims. I just put it that way. Because something don't sit right with that. That's just an astute observation. The feds don't come collecting boxes and pack, confiscating these things. From the very beginning of all this, we wanted to know what was in them boxes. Because I'm going to keep it a buck with you. Diddy is the Black Epstein. I said Diddy is the Black Epstein. Make no mistake about that. Just because the mainstream media is trying to fluff him up and, oh, he learned from his mistakes. No. Diddy listen, they showed you a bunch of baby oil. That's child's play. That's child's play. They want to make y'all believe that Diddy is sitting up in the feds because he was having freak offs with men and women. No, that's what they do in a Reggie in Hollywood. That's what they do. That's a normal Friday night for them. No, them underground tunnels is in Diddy's house. They ain't show you the underground tunnels. They ain't show you the rest of the black boule that's connected to Diddy. They ain't show you none of that. That's why the media being soft now. They spanked him. They put him in his place because he went against that liquor company. And they're not going to let him ever rise back into full power and prominence like he once was. But at the same time, the elephant in the room is where the rest of these folks at? Let's go.
I'm Laura Jarrett in New York, and we are coming on the air with breaking news as the sentencing of Sean Diddy Combs, the music mogul, has been ongoing all day there in the federal courthouse. It's been a lengthy day. We've heard from prosecutors. We've heard from the defense team. We have heard from Sean Diddy Combs himself. You'll remember he was convicted this past summer of 2 counts of transportation, facilitating the transportation of 2 women across state lines. He was acquitted of charges of sex trafficking and racketeering. But now we wait to find out his sentence there as the judge is on the bench going through some of the sentences.
Not to mention how bad Diddy did those women, bro. Imagine a man who got power, fame, and riches getting with these young women whom trust in him to lead them to the promised land. But instead, he exploited them and had them going in freak offs, was ordering these men to do the unthinkable to these women, totally desecrate them. These women trusted in Diddy. That's foul work right there.
Factors. I want to go to Chloe Melas, who has followed this case from the very beginning. She's outside that federal courthouse. Chloe, we heard from Sean Diddy Combs in his own words in a letter, a powerful letter that he wrote to the judge. But today he was tearful, emotional, addressing the judge, addressing his family. Tell us what he said.
Laura, that's right. So he spoke briefly to the judge, and I'm just going to look at my notes. He said that he was sobbing, and he said that he has lost respect for himself. He lost the respect of his family. He lost his businesses, and he said multiple times, I am begging for your mercy. He called his actions shameful and sick. He said he wants to be a father again, and he told the judge that if you give me this opportunity, I will never lay my hands on anybody else ever again. I will do right by my family, and I will do right by the community. This is not about making money. I want to be a functioning member of society. He talked about being sober for the first time in years. The judge also just saying moments ago, because the judge is speaking right now and addressing Combs and the entire courtroom, and he said that I do take into account the fact that you have inspired many people. He talks about the fact that he says, I know that you are a self-made artist that have inspired and lifted up communities worldwide, and the impact in entrepreneurship that you've had is iconic. And he talks about the murder of Sean Combs' father. That's something that Combs, as his legal team, brought up multiple times, that he had a very rough upbringing, and it all began.
See, this is what they're doing. They're trying to set the stage for people to have sympathy. That's what they're trying to do. No. We don't need all of that from a judge. Do your job and do what you need to do. Because listen, I'm going to say this. The mainstream media is full of dirty tricks. Word to Tupac. The media is full of dirty tricks. They want the sympathy for a reason. Look, look, this is what we got to do. When it comes down to the foundational Black Americans, we all have rough upbringings. Diddy been rich since he was a kid. Diddy was off up in Howard at what? 18, 19? This man had a record label, millions of dollars practically his whole life. We all got rough upbringings. Do that mean that he should be out here allegedly graping the jits, taking advantage of men and young men? Do that mean that he should be running around here beating the brakes off of people? No. Yeah. No, we're not trying to hear all that. We need, as FBAs, we need to get these people out of our communities, bro. They look, until they're doing something for the people, get them out of our communities. What the hell have Diddy did for the people? Tax write-offs is not doing for the people. Giving away bikes and turkeys is not doing for the people. Diddy was a billionaire. Did Diddy buy land for the people? Did Diddy do anything for the people to make a real impact? Now, what I will say is Diddy talked that talk. He talked that talk.
And when his father was murdered when he was very young, this rough upbringing, which later led to PTSD. But Combs just breaking down, crying also when 6 of his 7 children spoke today, Laura, in court. They cried, begging for their father to come home, the judge thanking them for their courage. And again, his 84-year-old mother also sitting in the courtroom today. She was there nearly every single day of his 2-month criminal trial over the summer. And Combs, you know, We know that he had sent, Laura, that 3.5-page letter to the judge via his attorneys last night. And we weren't sure if he was going to end up speaking today, because as the day went on, he was not giving his allocution. But then it was the very last moment before the judge spoke. And again, the judge is explaining to him, look, you are being sentenced for the Mann Act. Those are the 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. You are not being sentenced when it comes to sex trafficking, when it comes to racketeering, which he was acquitted on. But, you know, Laura, something that we've talked about, you and I, is that the judge...
And that's another thing. Everybody involved should have been prosecuted. Just so I'm clear where I stand with all of this. I seen people doing podcasts talking about what they did with Diddy and Cassie. You had some of these male escorts going on different shows talking about all their sexual escapades. So y'all got to understand what the media do. Some of this is some made for TV distraction nonsense. Some of this stuff is just distractions, straight up, because this real world events going on. But they had the whole entire world talking about what's going on in Diddy's bedroom. I mean, the news media was going crazy with what Diddy was doing. And it's nasty what he was doing. But just think about how they use the media to keep us distracted from what's really happening in the world. Think about it. What's happening right now? Not to be long-winded. You got military all in the streets, looking like martial law outside. ICE agents is kicking down doors in apartment complexes, snatching kids out their bed. It's an all-out war up in the country. Racial tension boiling outside the pot. Think about all that's going on in the world right now. They over here changing laws. The FBI, they didn't exit stage left. The FBI say, yo, we gonna get up out of here. Listen, all the civil rights organizations, yeah, we gonna cut ties with them. Hey, look, the FBI said, look, we're not even gonna surveil none of the evil hate groups or none of that no more. We're not even surveilling extremists no more. Even though all these mass shootings going on, we ain't even worried about that no more. Let America purge. Meanwhile, Diddy is going to be taking over the airways for the next couple of days, but it is what it is. I just got to tell y'all something to keep y'all conscious to what's really happening. But we're going to continue.
Can take into consideration Combs' history of violence. He can take into consideration the testimony of Jane, of Cassie Ventura, of Mia, right? Even though he was acquitted of sex trafficking and racketeering, the judge can take all of this into consideration when deciding his sentence. And remember, Combs faces up to 20 years in prison, 10 years mandatory maximum on each count. And the judge had kind of showed his cards perhaps earlier today, saying that he did agree with the probation department's guidelines of 5 to 7 years, Laura.
Chloe, stand by there. We're going to come back to you soon, but I want to go to Mr.
So let's do the math real quick. Diddy done already did a year. He's going to get 15% off good behavior of his time off. He's sentenced for mid-2027, Diddy will be back out. Okay, I don't know what happened. I had a little glitch. But mid-2027, Diddy will be back out, according to the math, right? Let's go.
Maris, now one of our key legal analysts who has followed this case since the very beginning. Misty, a lot of numbers being thrown around in court right now, but break it down for us. What exactly is the judge weighing here? He has a lot of discretion. He has the sentencing guidelines, which of course are a starting point. But walk our viewers through exactly what he's going to be weighing. As of right now, he's on the bench and he's talking in some detail about listening to the victim's testimony.
Absolutely, Laura, and so much information coming out in court today, much of which was laid out in the prosecution's brief, what they think an appropriate sentence would be, looking for 11 years, versus the defendant's sentencing brief, 14 months, which would essentially mean he goes free. The judge also taking into consideration the probation department's recommendation, which is somewhere in the range of 5.5 to 7.5 years. So all of that is being taken into consideration. But important to note, what does federal sentencing look like? Well,
Why is it all we see is sketches of Diddy? Why is there no real footage of this man in jail, bro? Or in a courthouse at all? Now, I understand in high-profile crimes, there's a level of safety from the public, a level of inclusion, if you will. But how we know this man ain't on an island somewhere still throwing parties, bro? Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, look, I'm not trying to get all conspiratorial with y'all, but I'm the type of person, I question everything. In 2025, I got to question everything. Why do we always see these little paintings and pictures? I mean, Young Thug's trial was a RICO. We seen Young Thug up in trial every day like it was a reality show. I'm trying to make sense of all this. Let's go.
Well, first, the judge goes through this analysis. Where does this fall when it comes to the federal sentencing guidelines? And that's where you look at certain types of offenses, criminal history, whether or not there are aggravating factors taken into consideration, and then the defendant will get a score. So, Laura, that's what we heard in court in the beginning of the day when the judge was laying out what he was going to be taking into consideration. And he said he doesn't believe there's a reason to go outside the sentencing guidelines, which is that range that the probation department said, somewhere in the range of 5 to 7 years. Now, the second part, Laura, this is the key. It's an individualized assessment of the individual. And that's what we've been hearing as the day unfolds. He's taking into consideration whether or not the defendant shows remorse, is taking accountability, rehabilitation, and another big one, deterrence. Not just deterrence of Combs to engage in this type of.
Yeah, that is true. The feds do not let the cameras in the courthouse. That is a very good point. I'm glad somebody said that. But still, nonetheless, in high-profile crimes in the past, we've seen a little bit more. We've seen a little bit more. But let's go.
Behavior, but what does it say to others, and sending a message that this type of conduct will not be tolerated and it will be punished. So all of that is going to be central to the judge's determination. And as I'm watching the judge's words followed by the reporters in court, he is focusing on Combs being somebody who was a successful entrepreneur, self-made, absolutely loves his family, has contributed to society, but he cannot ignore the nature and offense of the crime. And we heard prosecutors lay out a couple of things. 15 years of conduct, 172 freak
15 years of conduct.
offs.
Damn, how many freak offs? How many freak offs was going on?
Not ignore the nature and offense of the crime. And we heard prosecutors lay out a couple of things. 15 years of conduct, 172 freak offs.
Like, why? They counted this man's freak offs, y'all. So these freak offs, they wasn't just annual freak offs. He had multiple seasonal freak offs. I mean, listen, I don't know why that's even mentioned. Because the people at the freak-offs were willing participants. Like, what are we talking about? They need to tell us the real. We want to know the real. Who the rest of them people on them damn boxes? In those boxes, on them files y'all got. 172 freak-offs. That man Diddy had baby oil galore. That's crazy, cuz. Yeah, that's just weird that they mentioned that, right? Let me see. A lot of YouTubers that were there covering it filled us in throughout. They had lockdown, no leaks. They saw Diddy. He was there. I feel you though. Don't trust nobody. Yeah. There were some people outside the courthouse or whatever the case is, letting us know that, he was in there. So I will give y'all that. I'm not going to go too conspiracy theorist with it. But I still feel like the media does use this to keep us distracted. Yeah, I mean, they was out here doing what they was doing. And they agreed with it. But what Diddy really deserves is this time for what reason? For what he's really guilty of. All the things that we know as a community he's really guilty of. See, Diddy still got he still has a line of protection. He still has a line of protection. But when he get out of there, man, look, I hope Diddy repent, change his ways, turn to the Most High. I hope he finds, listen, I honestly hope Diddy find God in there. I really do. I hope he finds God in there. I hope he finds God and stop pressing up on men. I hope he stops this nasty semen fetish that he got. And being extra weird, being a freak body, old head, and he stopped that nasty stuff he been doing. I really do. I hope he repents.
Knew it was wrong and did it anyway. So these are all of the factors the judge is going to be weighing in making that final decision. So even though he said this is the range I'm looking at, it could vary based on those factors, specifically rehabilitation, accountability, deterrence, and whether or not this is something that Combs is actually remorseful for. So it's a lot of latitude for the judge to make this decision.
And Missy, some of the language here is pretty striking. It's federal court, so obviously we can't bring it inside the courtroom, but thankfully we have a bunch of producers there who are able to give us notes and give us color of what's happening. And some of the language from the judge here is really strong, Misty, and it almost sounds like some of the language we heard earlier from the prosecution, which suggested that Combs and his attorneys had minimized some of the violence. And this is from the judge saying, I was sitting right here for Cassie and Jane's testimony, referring to the two survivors. We read about it. We saw the gashes, the bruises, the broken down doors, the video of your savage beating of Miss Ventura, probably the most damning piece of evidence in this case. One of the videos was played there for the jury. We all saw it with our own eyes.
Yeah, but Cassie, she already won a lawsuit behind that. So I don't even know how that was admissible in court. I understand. She took the money. They still brung it to court. None of this makes sense. The whole Diddy trial is it's a circus, y'all. The whole trial is a circus. It really is. That's what points to it being a real distraction. The whole thing is a circus.
When it became public. And the judge also explaining here that you plied Cassie Ventura with drugs. She had an addiction over a decade. That goes to this issue that the defense has raised, that, look, she wasn't, she was there willingly for some of these instances. She was actually a participant here. And it appears the judge is pushing back on some of that pretty hard here, Misty.
Yes, Laura. So that is a key legal argument that the defense raised, whether or not Cassie Ventura and Jane.
Look, Cassie was there for it. She was a participant, but Cassie was young when she got with Diddy. She loved that man. He took advantage of her love, and he turned her out like a freak body ass old head. He turned her out. He was swinging both ways. He was swinging every way. Every way you can swing, Diddy was swinging every way that a person can swing. And he brung her to hell with him. And it is what it is. He took advantage of her. Let's go.
Were participants or victims. The judge had said he views them as vulnerable victims, which means that's an aggravating factor, something that can increase the sentence. And Laura, what strikes me, and I'm watching the notes from the reporters as well, he said he rejects the narrative that this is just a case of sex, drugs, and rock and roll between consensual, intimate partners. He's looking at this very differently. And something that cannot be lost, the judge sits through the whole case. It is the same judge who will make the sentencing determination, who heard all of the...
See, y'all got to understand spiritually that when an incubus gets with a woman, he can turn her soul dark. Diddy practices sex magic. He practices Thelema. Diddy is a wizard, a warlock. Diddy was powerful. So young Cassie gravitating towards that power, success, and everything above, wanting a career, she put herself out there to be contaminated because all that filth was transferred to her. It was a transfer of spirits. That's what happened. I'm telling you. Because why do I say that, Bree? Why do you say he was a wizard? Him taking a male specimen and rubbed it on himself, that's the practices of Aleister Crowley. The drugs he was taking. See, that was written of in the satanic books. Aleister Crowley and Satanism and Thelema, sex magic rituals. They talk about taking different drugs, DMT, hallucinogens. Using these things, using bodily fluids to do rituals and magic and spells and to gain power and control. Y'all remember that clip where Diddy was in the room talking about he a savage and everything he want, he get? Yeah, he was doing that through dark energy. He was doing that, all that through sorcery. Yeah, Diddy was a wizard. And now he's sitting up in that jail meeting sobriety. Now he have to face himself. And I'm gonna tell y'all, when you that deeply rooted into the occult, it can kill you just leaving it. It can kill you just leaving it. Them demons can take you out if you was that deeply rooted in it to the point where it ain't no out. Just not being able to do what he was doing. Listen, he can end up being taken out. It's very real. That's why you don't play with the dark side like that. Diddy was definitely on the dark side. Anybody who been around Diddy, all you got to do is hear what they say, man. He had a dark presence, a dark energy. There was grown-ass men crying when you talk about Diddy. He got accused of straight violating these men. Yeah, those soul contracts are very real. That stuff is nothing to play with. I know some of y'all are probably new to the platform. Y'all just joining, but we on this platform right here, we talk about the spiritual side of things too. We touch on a plethora of topics on this channel. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, right?
Evidence and all of the testimony throughout the trial. So it's very clear that the judge is not buying some of what the defense was setting forth with their narrative and is focused on some of the factors that the prosecutors laid out, the violence, the drug use. And those are all what we call in federal practice relevant factors, and federal judges can take them into consideration. This is over of course, the defense objects, says that he was acquitted on certain charges, but you see there's a reason why the judge is laying out the rationale here and focusing on a lot of the violence, and as you said, Laura, in great detail. because this will be something the defense will be looking at it for a potential appeal. So we are going to see exactly what the judge is focused on and how it fits into those categories to justify the sentence that's imposed.
Well, he don't need to justify it. What's done is done. Diddy is doing he's gonna be doing a couple more years. He'll be back out. Hopefully Diddy turns his life around and get out of the occult practices he was doing. Hopefully he turns to the Lord and don't turn a Big Bubba in Cell Block 1. You know, and this also goes to show that you can't hide from the Creator. No matter how big you get, no matter how successful you become, you just can't do whatever you want without consequence. No matter how many people you can pay off, no matter how high on the horse you get. So this is also a lesson in redemption. Repent before it's too late. Everybody got their skeletons in the closet, but repentance is key. One love to y'all. Be blessed. I'll talk to y'all in a later time.